So I'm tuning in, feeling into what I want to talk about today. And I like to always begin with where I'm at, which is very tired. I'm very tired today, and it's been a week where I've been unwell, and I was traveling last week, and major delays and a lot of patience required. But one of the things that, I've been reflecting upon is there is no future. There's only the now. And you might hear that and go, well, yeah, duh. But we're very, very future oriented, right? So I want to talk about this illusion of time and how there is actually no future. There's only this present moment followed by another present moment. And what happens when we come into present moment living and we stop, we at least try to slow down the projection of the future. And this includes, I also want to talk about goals. I want to talk about expectations. I want to talk about once I get there, then I will be happy. These kind of stipulations that we put on our life that takes us away from this present moment. I also want to talk about surrender. And I want to talk about softening into silence and stillness, and how when we don't have it, I'll tell you a little bit of a personal story on that one. So we're going to do a little bit of the kitchen sink this morning and throw in a bunch of different stuff. But really at the core of it is, how do we remain here? So let's dive in. This is Corinne Bloom, and you're listening to Raw Conversations. A dear friend of mine sent me this beautiful video by Liz Gilbert, and I guess she has, some kind of podcast where I don't know what the themes are, but they had a theme of writing from the place of unconditional love. They wrote a letter. If unconditional love wrote a letter to them, what would they be saying? And she shared hers, and also a man called Rob Bell shared his as well. And I so loved listening to them. It was so beautiful and so profound. So I want to encapsulate a little bit about what they both shared, because it was really, really in resonance with where I am, where I've been. And this is what I love about life, when you start to really tune in. And I'm so grateful for my morning practice right now. I had years and years and years where I just didn't have a consistent morning practice. And actually, what a difference it makes to literally sit up from bed and do my breathing and do my meditations. It just puts me so much more in tune with myself, in relationship with myself. I hear myself more. I hear my intuition more. I notice the synchronicities more. I've shared all of this before. Sorry, I'm just grabbing some water. If I cough, it's because I've been unwell this last week. So my apologies in advance. It's just such a nourishing ritual to have with oneself, and it's not even, this is going to tie into what I want to talk about. It's not even about, well, where am I going to get to with this? You have to meditate for enlightenment, there's always our society, which has been so heavily leaning towards the left brain and the masculine, always needs to have a goal, an end line, excuse me. And so then what it does is that we can't just experience something. We always do something with the aim of getting something from it. Rather than just, if you just be in the experience of it, you will naturally receive something in and through and out of it because of the richness of the experience. But when we're looking to, okay, why am I doing this and what am I going to achieve from it? It just takes on a very, very different energy, which is much more exhausting and much more uncentering. It pulls us away and outside of ourselves. So actually, one of the things that that Liz Gilbert was talking about is goals. So she has, I like looking at things from the perspective of the Enneagram, and I have a sense of what type she might be, but some personality types are much more goal focused, goal oriented. And so, okay, I'm going to set up this goal and I'm going to get this done. And there's nothing like evil per se about goals, but I love how when she was using the voice, coming from the voice of unconditional love said, well, what if you didn't call them goals, but guesses? And that not all of them need to be fulfilled, because they were saying something around, they were also unconditional. I would say they, because it's like she was really channeling she even says that she's channeling something beyond herself. And sometimes it comes in the form of I, and sometimes it comes in the form of we. And I definitely find when I'm kind of channeling and I'm journaling, it always comes in as we. We talking to me as like the divine child. So she was saying, they were saying, like if you think you're in control of everything that you've done, every goal, you would have achieved everything that you set yourself to do, right? But what about, all of the various relationships that you've had, the ex-husbands and the ex-lovers and partners? If you had really, thought that each one of those goals would be achieved, you would have still been in that relationship. Or what about the manuscript that you thought was going to be the big one, the big book, that was really going to put you on the top of the list, but that's still sitting in your closet, So basically, if I can find the link to the video, I will put it in the description for this episode. But it's basically to say we have all of these ideas that everything that we kind of go, this is a goal, I need to achieve it. And if I don't achieve it, that it's a failure. And it puts us in this false sense of linear time, right? That we have to get from the beginning to the end in one straight line. And it has to be forward and upward moving. And it needs to be geared towards success, right? AKA achievement. AKA I got my goal and now I'm worthy, right? Whereas everything in life is an experience, and there is no future moment. There's only this present moment. Because even when we get to that future moment, that is a present moment. But if we're constantly dangling the carrot, we're chasing the carrot in front of our nose to say, oh, but when I get there, when I fulfill this, when I achieve this, when I have that, when I make this amount of money, when I have that house, when I have my man, when I have my woman, when I have my, baby, then I'll be happy. Then I'll be fulfilled. There was a little kind of cartoon of a man speaking to an owl, and he said, the man said, why is happiness so elusive? And the owl responded, because you always look for it in the future. Basically saying, you never look for it here. You never look for it here. It's always a future projected, I will be happy when, ... Right? And there's a pressure to that. And, as I've been talking about, we're going through such huge shifts and transformations right now. We are letting old paradigms crumble, and we're needing to redefine a lot, like everything. In my mind, we're really redefining everything. We're redefining relationship. That's a whole other episode, which I had recorded, but I'm not gonna publish right now. But around why are so many women single? I will get to that, but not this week. But there's a whole redefining of all of the things that we thought were important, which are no longer important in the same way anymore, because we're changing. We're changing into different frequency, energy. We're upgrading who we are as human beings. And so the old ways simply won't work anymore. And I think where people are seeing it most is, it's always the three areas. Where do you live? How's your relationship? How's your work, job, purpose, right? So the biggest thing that has come out of the last 4 years is a lot of people going, what has meaning to me? If my work doesn't have meaning to me, why am I doing it? This is my life. What am I doing? If my relationship doesn't have meaning for me, why am I in this relationship? If it's not going to grow and offer meaning, then it's better for me to say, thank you, I love you, and goodbye, right? Or if this place that I'm living in doesn't nourish me anymore, whether it's the house or the geographic place, if it doesn't mean anything to me anymore, then in order to continue to evolve and grow, I must make this change. So we are in time of great change. And time of great change also has sometimes a sensation of going through the bottleneck. I might have already shared this. I like to use the analogy that every transition is like a birth canal. And you gotta go through the darkness. You got to be squozen into a very, very small space so that then you can be birthed. And then when you're birthed, you come out the other side and all of a sudden there's light and there's clarity and there's expansion. But it's the death rebirth cycle. And I think, again, getting out of this illusion of time, and especially linear time, right? If we're always projecting into the future as something that's ahead of us, rather than seeing that time is an illusion anyway, but it's all cyclical. Everything is cyclical. We're moving in spirals and in circles, but never straight lines. So I loved one of the things that Liz Gilbert was saying, and this highly, highly, highly resonated with me, is that the first part of life is maybe, I forget the word that she used, but going on the theme of goals, the first part of life is like trying to figure it out, right? What am I going to do? Who am I going to be? What are the things I want to get done? What do I want to experience? What am I striving for? And we're learning about ourselves, right? It's all beautiful. Like we're so learning about ourselves in our 20s. We think we have it like all figured out, and we so don't. That is the time of getting to know who the hell am I in the world? Like you were just a kid and a teenager, and it's like your decade of being an adult, but going out into the world and defining what life and existence and experience and who you are, the I am, is out in the world without your parents. Like that's huge, right? And so it's kind of funny and sweet and cute that we think, oh, I should have all my shit figured out by the time I'm 26. And then 30 hits and people go, oh my God, I'm turning 30. I still don't know. And it's like, you're not meant to know. And then in your 30s, you settle in a little bit more, you get a little bit more tired. So you can't just go out and party all the time. And so you settle into yourself a little bit more. But even in your 30s, you think, shit, I'm running out of time. I need to figure out what the hell I'm doing. And of course, for women, they have the added pressure of like the biological clock, but you still have time, especially now because we are living longer. And then you get into your 40s and you're like, shit, what have I done? This isn't what I thought life was going to be. What? Shit, I really got to get my shit together. And I think it's not until you get into your kind of mid 40s and maybe 50s where you're like, oh, that's all been this kind of game that I've been playing that I think I have to get somewhere. And then the second part of your life, and this is what Liz was speaking to, is about surrender. And I know that surrender is so powerful. I nearly had it tattooed on my body in my early 20s. But when I was younger, it was forced surrender. It was like, I'm going to do until I'm forced to surrender, And for me, it came through either injury or through like what felt like an emotional breakdown. Like, I can't take it anymore, right? For some people, it's illness. But I'm really understanding the art of surrender now, which is like, okay, I don't need to try so hard. I don't need to force. I don't even need to expect what my life should look like. It doesn't need to look any which way. It shouldn't be any which way, right? There's nothing even in the heavens, if you will, that is telling you that, no, it shouldn't be that way. You're doing it wrong. When we end this life, sure, we can evaluate it. We can reflect back upon it. Like, what did I learn? What would I still like to learn? What lesson did I not quite get? What could I have, what could I have done differently? But it's never through the lens of judgment. It's never through the lens of right, wrong, praise, punishment. Never. So you might choose to come back into another incarnation and be like, yeah, I want to continue learning that lesson, Or you might go, yep, nope, got that one. I want to do something totally different. But the point is that there's just nothing that you have to achieve. This is all an experience. It's like going on holiday. I often really think that it's like, not on holiday, it's like traveling. I feel like I'm going to travel to planet Earth and be a human being and see what that's like, And kind of once you're done traveling, you're like, okay, I'm tired. I want to go home now. So it's not at all dissimilar to like, I'm going to go travel the world. I'm going to go, to Asia, and then I'm going to go to Africa, and then I'm going to go to South America, and I'm going to, what do I want to go see, and what do I want to experience, and what do I want to learn, and what do I learn about myself in the process of traveling? Because sometimes it's amazing and euphoric, and sometimes it's bloody hard, and sometimes you run into like bad luck and bad situations, and other times it's like miraculous and magical. That's the experience of traveling, right? And so why would it be any different if we think that we're traveling to this planet in this incarnation to just learn and discover and explore, right? There's nothing like traveling that will have you grow and learn about yourself, because especially when you're out of your comfort zone and you get out of routine and habit, you're gonna discover and learn a lot about yourself, right? So life is kind of like that. We've come to travel. We've come to explore. But that there doesn't need to be like, well, I'm traveling because at the end of my travel, I need to have achieved this, that, and the other. You might have your bucket list of what are the things that you want to do. But most of the time when you go travel, it's not necessarily even the things that were on your list. It's all of the spontaneous moments that arose in the day that create the memories, right? So I think we need to get out of this construct, this thought paradigm that we need to get somewhere and we need to achieve something to prove our worth. Honestly, I think it comes down to that, because that is the kind of the makings of this society. So surrender, for me, surrender is in part not trying so hard, not forcing to make happen, but it's this softening into, it's not apathy, it's not giving up, but it's this softening into of allowing and accepting what is here. And getting out of this like, oh, I'm doing it wrong, or it should be this way, or I don't like it this way, I want it to be different. That might come up. Sure, of course, we're entitled to that. We're entitled to have an opinion, right? We will have a response, I like this, I don't like this, I feel neutral. But so much of life is in the perception, right? So last week traveling, I had ludicrous delays, just ridiculous. And I was feeling very unwell, just really exhausted, really, really, really exhausted. It was the last thing that I needed. And it's like, well, what do you do in those moments? I can fight it, but if I fight it, I fight me. I'm fighting against me. I'm not fighting against anybody else, right? And so this is true to anything. If you resist and you fight against your experience, you're not like, I'm going to show him, I'm going to fight against this, and I'm going to show, EasyJet that they're bastards. No, I'm not fighting against them. I'm fighting against my own peace. Because I'm in frustration, or I'm in agitation, and it's totally okay to have those feelings. And if you have those feelings, be with them. There's a moment where it's like, after 3 hours of delay and then sitting on the plane and having to sit on the tarmac for probably another half hour, I was like, oh, you've got to be kidding. Like, just enough of this, You're going to go through the emotions. That's okay. That's okay. But I think I'm just using that as an example. But when it comes to, like another example is after I had done this 2 day of traveling, 16 plus hours of traveling over 2 days. And I came back and of course I was not well. Started to get this cough and I was in bed, and it's my 1 week off for the entire summer. And I'm like, wow, I'm spending it in bed. This is not what I thought. This is not what I expected. This is not what I'd wanted for myself. I wanted a few days of rest, and then I wanted to see some friends and maybe go to some events and do things as, my own sovereign person, right? Without a little one, not a little one, but without a child kind of connected to me. And I had to go, okay, I have to let go. I have to surrender. I have to just be here now. Because the pain comes when we project into the future. Or the pain and the suffering comes when we think about the past and, oh, I wish this had been this and I had done that and I'd made this decision and I regret this. And it's like all of that is suffering. All of that is unnecessary suffering. And so it was like, okay, here I am. I'm in bed. I'm not feeling well. Does it kind of make me sad? Yeah. Is this how I wanted it to be? No. But it is what it is, and I have to allow it, and I have to stay here, right? And actually, this week is like all of my friends ended up being out of town. And so it really was just a week of rest. And I think this is another thing, is like when we are in partnership with ourselves and we're in tune with ourselves, we have to listen and we have to trust that whatever we're moving through, whether our body is dictating that or our soul is guiding us towards that, it's like, can I trust? Can I trust that actually what I needed this week was just rest? And sometimes the body gets unwell because it's like, yeah, you really need to rest, and we're going to keep you from doing all of the things that you wanted to do because actually what you're needing is rest. So really, really trusting, listening, tuning into, being in conversation with ourselves to know, oh, okay, this is happening for my greatest good, right? So surrender for me is trying to let go, is letting go of the ideas of how I think life should be and how it should go, and how I might have the illusion that I'm controlling it. It's also letting go of the expectations, the goals, the ideas of where you think you should be in order to believe that your life is successful and that you're not wasting time. It's so funny, wasting time. What a weird term, right? Like there is no time because really there's just now. There's just now. And then here there's just now. And actually time elongates. It slows down when we come into the now. That's the irony, right? People that have their calendars full for the next year, that are constantly saying, oh my God, my life is so busy. And they go, God, where did the time go? Yeah, the time has gone into constantly living in the future. Constantly living in the future. Okay, where can I slot you into this date on this month, 3 months from now? That is going to make time go by very, very quickly, and probably in a stressful way. Some people thrive off of it. That's great. Some people really don't. So this ties into what with this man, Rob, oh God, I forget his last name now. I said it at the beginning. I loved, he had this very kind of poetic, poem. And he was saying there is no it. There's only this. And what that relates to is the it is the future thing that you're trying to get to in order to feel like, I've done it. I've done it, right? I've got it. I've done it. I've achieved it. I've produced it. And it's in the future, right? And once you do it, done it, achieved it, there's going to be another it that you're going to be reaching towards. And he's saying, but all there is this right here, right now, this, which is within your experience, which is around you, which is before you, right here, right now. And he was talking about the beauty of, he's never been more creative. Like he's created so much. I think he must be a writer as well. But it's not for anything. He's not producing it for something in the future. And he's never felt more fulfilled. And it reminds me of how, my former life, 2 decades ago now almost, was as, first as a professional ballet dancer. And then when I suffered the injury, then going into choreography and acting and all of that, all of what I did tended to be pretty big scale, right? So I had this connotation that creativity is wrapped in, it's a project. It needs to be produced. There needs to be hundreds, if not thousands of people watching it, right? In order for that to be deemed, I'm being creative and I'm producing something in the world, right? And then I had a phase of my life where my creativity really vanished, and I went into a different, that's when I started coaching a lot more, and founded and created the wellness center with my ex-husband. And that was also, you could say, a very fruitful time of my life. I actually did create a lot, but my creativity really vanished. And I remember coming to a point where I really missed it. I was a mother at this point, and I really thought, God, I just feel like that's something I really lost. And, every time I listened to music, I could imagine choreographing to it. And I would have these fantasies and daydreams around, like, God, I could have been a really well-known choreographer, and I could have been touring Europe right now and having my pieces shown to thousands of people. And I felt sad of like, wow, I really missed that opportunity. And then I'm thinking, okay, well, let me begin again. I could create this. I could try and collaborate with this person. I could put myself out there. But it was still this future moment, right? So I was kind of nostalgic over the past and what I wish it could be, and then projecting into the future of what I could maybe do. But day by day that passed, I wasn't being creative, right? And then it clicked. It dawned on me one day that it's like, why is it that I feel like I'm either creative on a big scale or I'm not creative at all? I was like, that doesn't make sense. It's like, sure, you could be creative on a big scale. That's great. That's very enjoyable. That's wonderful to have that intention. I never liked the word goal. It was far too masculine and linear. And I just was like, if I set a goal, I'm never going to keep to it, because the freedom in me is like, no, fuck you, and don't tell me what to do. So intention for me has much more breathing space and more spontaneity. So it's like, okay, that's a lovely intention, but what can you do for yourself in order to fulfill and nurture and give light to, like, put it on the fire kind of thing, your creativity in this moment? And that's when I created what I call poetry in motion, where I would write a poem very quick. Like, the moment the inspiration came in, I would write the poem within 5 minutes without editing it. I would find a piece of music. I would do the spoken word in like one go. It was all about spontaneity. All of it was spontaneity. I'd come from a background of perfection, and it was all about spontaneity and imperfection. And then I would add movement to it. I would throw it into iMovie. I would play with fast and slow motion, and that was it. That was the only editing I would do. And then I would post it. I'd post it. And this for me was such a wonderful exercise in creativity, true creativity, without any aim or goal or projection of it needs to be a product, it needs to be perfected, it needs to be edited, it needs to be distributed, it needs to be large scale. It was just like, no, listen to your creative expression, honor it, embody it, live it, breathe it, then put it out there. And it's imperfect. It's not in its perfect form. When I sing and I learn a song, I always post things on social media at the beginning stages, not when it's perfected, not when I know the song super well and I can sing it well. It's in the early stages when it's much more raw and spontaneous. And I've grown to absolutely love it because it's creativity without any aim. No aim, no goal, no product. And it's so liberating, and similar to what Rob Bell said, was he's never felt more fulfilled. He's writing loads, but he's not putting it out in the world in any kind of way that it's like, oh, whatever, a book or a screenplay or a film, whatever. And it's not that there's anything wrong with those. Those are great too. But that can't be our whole life. Our whole life can't be dependent on something on the future, because then, especially as an artist, let's say you're an author and you write a book, and it takes you years to write the book, and it takes years for it to get edited and published, and then it comes out. And I'll never forget Glennon Doyle being like, she'd write a book. Finally, once it's out, it's like 4 years later, And they're interviewing her about this book. And, oh, how do you feel? And she's like, I'm not that person anymore. That was 4 years ago. I'm not that person anymore. So I can't answer you from the perspective of the woman that wrote the book. I can answer where I am now, but I'm not where I was then. So this is the funny thing about sometimes, our projects can take a long time, and we've grown and evolved and changed in the process of it. So, finding ways that you can really express yourself authentically in the here and now. Doesn't mean you have to be an artist. We all have creativity in different forms. I'm just tend to be very artistic. It's been my whole life. But whatever it is for you, your creativity might be running a business. Your creativity might be as a school teacher or as a lawyer, or it doesn't matter. It's whatever makes you feel alive, whatever makes your heart and your soul sing. But I think when we feel enlivened, when we all of a sudden come into, you're doing something and there's no time. You could be doing something, it feels like 5 minutes and 5 hours has passed. This is what I mean about the illusion of time. Whatever it is that makes you feel like that brings you into the present moment, do it. And if you notice yourself going, oh, but I have to produce this, it needs to become that, I need to meditate in order to become enlightened and become Zen and become like a monk. Whoa, hold on. Come back. You don't need to do any of that stuff. There's no man in the sky that is going to grade you. There's nobody there telling you that you're doing it wrong or how you should do it right. If there was, life would come with a manual, but it's not one size fits all, right? And there is no manual. We're learning, creating as we go. So, the invitation that I want to present to you today is getting out of the illusion of time that you need to be in some future moment that is going to be better than where you are now. Now, I want to say something to that because I want to acknowledge the human part of that, right? We're functioning as human and as soul. So the soul can see the eagle eye, right? The soul can see beyond duality. The soul can know that there's no right, wrong, good, bad, that this is just an experience. The human and the ego, on the other hand, is in duality, is in the kind of the learnt trajectory of life, based on what our environment has taught us. So I want to acknowledge that it's easy to say, right? Don't be in the future. Don't project in the future. Just be in the here and now. But let's say there's something that you really, really want. Let's say there's something that your heart really desires, like you really desire to be in partnership, or you really desire to be in a certain place with your work because of the fulfillment that you'll have when you reach that point. Or with a partnership, that it's like, okay, you can be happy on your own, but the fulfillment that you will have once you're in partnership will just be exponential. I really want to acknowledge the reality of that and the truth of that it's natural for our hearts to have a longing towards what we know would make us happy. And of course, this is why it's important to do the inner work so that we can discern between, am I wanting this in my life to validate me? Or am I wanting this in my life because it will exponentiate my joy? And those are two very different motivations. And I would really invite you to look at those motivations. If you are seeking for a relationship to fill the void, or if you're seeking for a career to make you good enough in the eyes of your parents and your peers, go and do the inner work. This is the shadow work that needs to be done, because you will forever be at the mercy of your limiting beliefs, at the mercy of your not good enough and lack of self-worth. There's no judgment in that, but that requires love. It requires loving attention to heal and then reframe and alchemize that. But if you're coming from the perspective of like, okay, I've done a lot of the shadow work and this is just what my heart longs for, because I know it will bring me even more joy and even more fulfillment. I think that is there's a dance with that, because of course we only still have the moment. We don't want to be projecting into the future. We don't want to have that we don't want to have that when I have the relationship, when I have the career, I'll be happy. Of course, we need to find the things that create joy in our present moment. We have to enjoy ourselves, appreciate ourselves, do what we can to really love life now. But there are going to be moments where you just have to acknowledge of like, ooh, I feel the ache. Ooh, I feel the longing. And what I find useful in those moments is that you might feel the longing for that future moment, but give yourself the feeling immediately as if you have it now, and feel the gratitude for it, and it will change your state of being. And the more you can do that right away, it keeps us in that present state. I think when we are so removed from our present state, and then we don't like where we are, and then we project into the future, and we stay in the melancholy and the longing and the scarcity and the I don't have that and I want that, the want, like we never say I want this. It's I have this, or I am this, right? Because otherwise we stay in the energy of wanting. So our language is also very, very important. But if we can address it as quickly as possible and go, oh, okay, I feel the longing. I feel a bit of the sadness. Okay, come back here, come back into the now, breathe. Okay, I'm feeling, imagining it, that it's already here. If you're sitting on a bench watching the sunset and you wish your partner was with you, and you feel like, oh God, I'm seeing all the couples around me, and I could go into the story. Why do they have it? I don't. I'm going to be alone forever. I feel sad. I feel depressed. So, do you see how that could pull you out of the present moment and go into the rabbit hole and into scarcity and into sadness and into suffering? Or you could immediately go, wow, yeah, that's something I really desire and long for. I'm seeing these couples, one day that's going to be me, right? Imagine, feel your partner is sitting next to you right now, right here, right then, watching the sunset with you. I'm using this as an example because I speak to a lot of people that want to be in partnership. But you could apply it to anything. Feel it as if it's happening now. And feel the gratitude for it being in your life. Gratitude has a way of pulling us into the present moment. And I know that sometimes if you're going through a hard phase, gratitude is hard, but practice it no less. Practice it for even the tiniest, teeniest, most mundane things, because it will bring you into the present moment and it will lift your heart, right? And what's beautiful is once we start to let go of future projection, expectation, goals, the what am I trying to achieve and produce and get to, that all of a sudden, when we're in the present moment, we feel the abundance. Like if you hear a lot of spiritual, teachers or channelers or all sorts of kind of quote unquote spiritual people, they will say that abundance is our birthright. And it is so true. Abundance is our birthright. Abundance is our essence and true nature. The universe is forever abundant. It is constantly creating, constantly. It's never ending. It's our society that has made things scarce, limited. And so therefore our belief systems become scarce and limited. You drop all of that and you are in a pool of abundance. And the more that I sit with myself every single morning, call it meditation, call it contemplation, call it spending time with myself with my eyes closed and breathing and feeling into the essence of who I am and expanding into the energetic bodies that I have, the more I feel that, abundance is just there. That is the norm. Everything else is, shit that we lather on top of it to limit it, to cut away at it, to sever it. And I think then going in and doing the inner work and just sitting with ourselves is to glue in the cracks with our presence, with our love, to create cohesion again, to create coherence between all parts of ourselves. So that which felt fragmented and severed becomes one again, which is our natural essence. So that's a lot. A lot of meanderings today. But the invitation is find the ways to bring you into the now. Recognize the illusion of the future. Recognize the ways in which you are chasing the carrot and reframe it. Reframe it so that you bring your joy and your happiness and your fulfillment and your validation and your worthiness and your peace here now. Don't try so hard. Don't force it. Don't try to control it. What would happen if you surrendered and trusted everything? The flow of your life, and that there's nowhere to get to. How would that change everything? There's nowhere to get to. There's no one that you even need to be or become other than yourself. You get to just be you, and that's already here. That's already here. It's not there. It's here. And you might just have to take some of the layers of clothing or even armor off in order to just let that part of you breathe and shine and expand. And surrender becomes the portal into the present moment, and the present moment becomes the portal to all of creation. And from that point, you really can create everything. If you believe it to be so, if you believe that's possible, but it's all coming from a state of being. We're letting go of being human doings. We were never human doings, but we were taught to be human doings. But we're really coming into human beings. And from the state of being, there is so much life. There's a vortex of energy that is abundant and infinite that you can always tap into. But you have to rest into it. And there is a wisdom and I don't even know what the word is, a nourishment, that's the word that comes through, of being in silence and stillness. That is the 0 point of all things. The void is the 0 point for all creation. There's some beautiful practices that I might share in next week's episode around things that you can do to bring you into that state. I recently just learned about the infinity wave. So I'm just going to drop that. You can Google it, but I will tie that in next week because this one's getting long enough. So the invitation is come into the present moment. With everything that I talked about today, come back to the present moment. You don't need to be anywhere else. You don't need to be anywhere else. You can let go. You can let go of trying so damn hard, and you get to just be you. You get to be authentically, beautifully you, and that is enough. All right. As always, take it or leave it as feels right for you, and loving you from afar. You've been listening to Raw Conversations with Corinne Bloom. Thanks so much for showing up, listening in, and being a part of the conversation with me.